And joining us right now, Representative Chris Van Hollen, Democrat from Maryland. Thanks for joining us, sir.
It's great to be with you guys this morning.
You proposed a tax credit for people earning less than $200,000 yesterday. I'm thrilled that you agree that people should have more of their hard-earned money. That's a great starting point. I wonder, though, why you didn't just propose a tax cut on rates across the board. Why pick just certain people to get a tax credit?
Well, if you were to cut tax rates across the board right now, you would have huge deficits, which over time would put a drag on the economy and slow down economic growth. So we can't do that. What I was doing was recognizing that the way the tax code is designed now, it is skewed in favor of those who make money off of money and against those who make money off of hard work, especially those in the middle class. And so we did two things. One, we tried to create more incentives for corporations to pay their employees more, and I'm happy to talk about that. But the other thing is, as you said, we provide that hardworking middle-class folks can keep more of what they earn. So over a 10-year period, you're talking about a $1.2 trillion tax cut aimed at the middle class and at those working hard to join the middle class.
Well, can you really call it a tax cut, or should we just be honest about it and say this is the redistribution of wealth?
No, it's a tax cut for the middle class.
Well, but where's that money coming from?
Well, it's coming from two sources. If you look at our tax code right now, according to the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, 17% of what they call tax expenditures or tax breaks, like tax deductions or tax exemptions, 17% of those go to the top 1% of income earners, and that's largely because certain kinds of income, like capital gains income, are taxed at lower rates than income earned from hard work. So this is a rebalancing of the tax code in a way that treats the taxation of hard work along the lines of taxation of, people who make money off of money.
Well, I don't want to quibble because you're a congressman and I'm just a guy with a microphone. But it seems to me that you are taking away or penalizing one group in order to give to another. Isn't that redistribution of wealth?
I would argue, and I hope you will look at the tax code, that the current tax code does that, right? The way the current tax code is structured, it is skewed in that direction. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the top 1% getting 17% of the benefit of tax breaks, right? You'd have a more proportionate share. And so if you're going to provide tax relief to the middle class in a fiscally responsible manner, I know we all love to say let's just cut everyone's taxes, but the deficit would go through the roof and we wouldn't be able to fund our defense and we wouldn't be able to fund Medicare, and we wouldn't be able to fund Social Security, right?
Well, not necessarily. Congressman, hold on. There have been times go ahead.
Make choices and tough decisions.
All right. There have been times when tax rates have been cut and revenue to the federal government has increased because of the increased economic activity. Isn't that true?
That's absolute nonsense.
That's never happened?
To the extent that the revenue raised to sufficient level to recoup the money lost. In other words, what you're saying is that if you look at the revenue coming in, the idea that if you, for example, cut the top rate, as some of my Republican colleagues are suggesting, from 39% to 25%, which would give folks at the top of the income scale a huge windfall. If you do that, you will create a huge deficit. You can argue that would generate some economic activity in the short term, but not nearly enough to recoup the lost revenue that would increase deficit.
Our guest is guest is Representative Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. We're talking about a proposal the congressman made yesterday at the Center for American Progress about a new tax credit plan that mostly would be funded by fees on Wall Street transactions. And you made Wall Street transactions, and you mentioned the 1%. And the fact that you did this at the Center for American Progress, a think tank in town that was very supportive of the Occupy Wall Street movement, was Center for American Progress an advisor, or did they contribute to the thought process behind this proposal?
Actually, we did not consult with the Center for American Progress at all during this process. The Center for American Progress like a lot of think tanks in Washington, from the liberal side to the conservative side, make different proposals over a period of time, and they contribute lots of ideas. So for example, they have been big proponents of this idea of trying to encourage more people to save for their retirement, which I think we would all agree is a good idea. Right now we have tax-preferred savings accounts, which are a good idea. So part of the proposal I made actually was to say, if you're a middle-class worker and you're getting this $1,000 paycheck bonus credit, or a couple that's getting $2,000, if you put at least $500 away in a savings account, you'll get a $250 bonus match. In other words, you'll get an extra tax benefit to encourage savings. And that will allow more people access to savings. You could do it right there on your tax return and direct that money into an account. So, look, I actually think there's a lot here for a lot of people across the political spectrum to like.
Yeah.
And you're right. At the end of the day, if we're going to do this in a fiscally responsible way, we have to pay for it. And so we pay for it by, observing that the way the tax code's written now creates these imbalances.
You also offer something here called the CEO Employee Paycheck Fairness Act, which it appears that it basically links certain tax deductions or salaries for CEOs and other corporate compensation linked to what the workers get paid. In other words, the CEOs don't get an increase unless the workers do as well. Is that am I understanding that correctly?
It's not quite that direct. It's a variation on that theme. We use the tax code right now, the business tax code, to provide preferences for racehorses, for corporate jets. What we're saying here is, let's also incentivize higher pay for employees and workers. And so what it says is that a corporation can continue to deduct up to $1 million for their CEO salaries. But to the extent that they're giving their executives big bonuses over $1 million, they don't get a tax deduction, right? They don't get to get a tax break for those multi-million-dollar bonuses unless they're also giving their employees a raise that reflects worker productivity and the cost of living.
I guess the fundamental question here is, why is it the government's job to tell a company how they should spend their money and how they should compensate their employees?
It's the government's job to decide what gets tax preferences, what gets to be deducted, and what doesn't, right? I mean, that's why a lot of lobbyists have succeeded in getting a special deduction, accelerated depreciation for corporate jets, more than...
It sounds like you'd agree that they would be better off with a flat tax, yeah?
What's that?
It sounds like you'd agree that we'd be better off with a flat tax, so none of these preferences and none of these lobbyists, and get all those people out of our tax code so there's no more preferences for anyone.
Well, no, I actually, for example, I just mentioned the preference for saving, right? I mean, I actually think that's a good idea to encourage more people to save in 401k plans. So
very, very quickly, we got to ask you the question about the president's decision not to go to Paris for the Unity March. We haven't heard much from Democrats.
Well, I think actually the administration's acknowledged that they made a mistake in not sending a high-level delegation. I think that was a mistake. I think they've acknowledged that fact.
All right. Well, we're out of time, but listen, Congressman Van Hollen, we always appreciate you joining us.
Yes, don't be a stranger, sir. Thank you.
All right.
No.